to your right, and walk down the stairs and away from the building. And Mr. Secretary, roll call, please.
Yes, Terrence Lynch.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
John Petronella is here. Francis Alamo.
Here.
Joseph Muley.
Here.
Kenneth Helinski.
Here.
Vinnie Grillo.
Here.
Christian D'Antonio.
Here.
And Walter Crizel is absent.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to move item 17A up before number 4.
So moved, Ms. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, Lori? I'm sorry, did I catch you off?
Yeah, hi. So the Woodsonia group is here virtually to discuss how they plan on starting the project over at the Enfield Square Mall. So we've got Mitch Holden and Dean Apostolaris and Kevin Nesta. Are you all there?
I am.
Yep.
Awesome.
Well,
We're
welcome.
going to turn it over to you. They're going to give you basically commission. This group is going to give you a quick overview as to how they plan on starting the project as far as demolition and grading and how they plan on moving forward. I hope that's a good enough introduction.
Oh, Lori, I thought you were going to do all the presenting for us tonight. Let me see if I can share my screen here.
This holistic map that you've given us, Exhibit A, I think is going to be more than adequate for tonight. Sorry about that.
Well, do you want me to dive in, Lori? Would that be preferable?
You give us your names and addresses only because you are on TV and people are watching you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Mitch Holland. Address is 20010 Manderson Street, Elkhorn, Nebraska 68022. And I'm the principal with Woodsonia Development, the developer of the project.
Yep.
Go ahead.
My name's Dean Apostolaris. If you need me to spell that, I can.
Okay.
Okay. And the address is 1 North Lexington Avenue, Suite 505 in White Plains, New York.
And my name is Kevin Naska. I work with Dean, and the address is 1 North Lexington, Suite 505, White Plains, New York.
Thanks. Well, do you guys want me to share my screen to take you through the presentation, or do you folks have the ability to do that on your end?
No, we don't. So if you would share your screen, that would be great.
I can do that. Okay, is everybody seeing this okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Well, Lori, thanks for helping us kind of get this set up. I'll start with this. We started working on the Enfield Marketplace project. It would have been a little over a year ago now. Our background with Sonia Real Estate, we're a Midwest-based development firm. We've acquired quite a few enclosed shopping malls over the past 5 years and converted them into kind of modern mixed-use developments. Enfield was a mall that we got introduced to. It was probably actually 2 years ago that we started looking at it. The existing mall owner, Namdar Realty, owns quite a few malls in Connecticut. I think they're the third largest mall owner in the United States. But this was one that we thought had adequate development potential. The town has been phenomenal to work with in terms of getting us through kind of the public-private partnership And tonight, I think what we'd like to present is, I'm going to call it our base civil plan set. We thought it'd be helpful to give you folks kind of a full overview of where we're trying to go with this project. It is a larger project. I think total it's about 60 acres, and there'll be various components of it. But wanted to kind of give you direction on, I guess, where we're going, and hopefully allow that to kind of influence, your guys' decision. So with that, I'll take you through this next page. Infield marketplace development. This will be, with the exception of Target. Target's kind of positioned on the north end of the site, which you can see right here. Everything is planned to be demolished and removed. That includes the existing building, parking lots, utilities. Everything is planned to come out. Site has quite a bit of environmental issues tied to it in terms of asbestos within the mall property. So everything will come down in its place. We have about a $250 million project plan. That would be a true mixed-use development. So it would involve an additional probably 165,000 square feet of new retail. That's kind of shown here south of the Target box. 450 apartment units, which are shown here on the kind of the south, I'm going to say east portion of the site. Potentially 2 hotels, which are shown right here. And then we have a number of pad sites, I'll call them, for restaurants, commercial buildings, whatever that might be. As we work through this project, various phases of it will get activated, really based on market demand. So as kind of a starting point, what we want to do is put in I'm going to call it common critical infrastructure, which Dean will be able to take you through that. And then as various components of the development are ready to be activated, we would put in the applicable infrastructure for those specific lots within the lot lines. This first page, I think it shows kind of a greater detail of what we're presenting for the project. These next few pages here show general elevations on what we'd propose to build. You can see the 2 hotels kind of up on this end. Again, the retail, multifamily, and pad sites. And these renderings are more so meant to kind of give a better picture to what we would envision. But again, we've had a lot of success in these mall redevelopments, especially when we're bringing in different uses, like the residential that you see, the retail, the commercial, and kind of bringing it all into a more modern development that you're kind of seeing built across the country now. This last page, I know we submitted a pretty detailed plan set. We wanted to include a single page that kind of gave a greater overview on what we're asking approval for. That's shown here. I'm sure you folks probably have an exhibit of it. Dean can answer anything really technical on this plan set. But again, what we're proposing is to demolish all the existing buildings. You can kind of see that outlined here. The existing parking lots, the utilities, and in its place, put in new utilities with this common access drive that runs kind of as a ring road around the entire site. And then as we're ready to activate, I'll say, various components of the development, we've got the common infrastructure in place, and we'll be able to kind of go activate those pieces. I'm sure many of these will go pretty quickly. We have a couple different opportunities that are lined up, generally ready to go. But we want to make sure we kind of have I'm going to say the backbone in there before we take too many steps forward. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Anything technical, we can kind of direct that to Dean, and I can chime in as need be. But I think with that, if you folks have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, Christian, any questions? I was just going to go down the line, starting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question is for the preliminary part. I know you guys said you've been talking with the town. which is great. I'm sure Lori and all will represent us well. We do have a local bus line that stops there, but have you also coordinated with the State Department of Transportation? Because that's also our town's commuter bus stop, primary commuter.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. We're working through. I don't want to call it that issue. I wasn't aware that this was a commuter location for the bus stop. There's nothing recorded against the property. There's no agreements in place. So we're working through how that will play into this project long term. At this point, I don't have an answer for you on that, but it's an issue that we need to work through.
Okay. John?
Yes, I see you'll be installing, you're proposing a new right-in, right-out entry-exit on Freshwater Boulevard. And with respect to Elm Street, the two entry exits there, there's no real proposal or to do anything with those. Do you think that they're going to be remaining the same, or you're not going to be looking at a right-in, right-out on any of those, or closing one of those? You're going to keep them both as they are, status quo? Is that a fair?
Our desire is to keep those status quo. Dean can probably speak to the technical aspect. There was Dean, was it actually a traffic study that was completed by the town?
Yeah, there was a traffic impact assessment that was completed as a partnership with, I believe, between a state and perhaps the town, specifically for a potential redevelopment of the mall with a similar traffic generation mix. Actually, it actually projected generating more than what we would potentially be generating. We've done a preliminary traffic analysis based on that and compared it to that. But yeah, like Mitch said, we don't have any plans to modify the entrances, the two of the entrances along Elm Street. We believe those to be sufficient for the traffic that would eventually be generated. As we move along in the project, there may be potentials and opportunities for us to take, alternative looks at that, depending on what ends up landing on the interior. But for now, our plan is to keep those as is. And like you had mentioned, add the additional right-in, right-out on Freshwater.
All right, I have nothing further.
Okay. Ken?
Yeah, I was looking at the overlay here, the overview, and so the Target building remains pretty much intact as a standalone? Are there
Correct.
No major changes actually to the Target building, or would there be some?
There'll be changes to the Target building. Right now it shares, right now Target's access into its store is within the mall corridor. There are agreements in place that contemplate the demolition of the mall. Right now that is owned by a different entity. So it's outside of what we'll be acquiring, but there are agreements, like I said, in place. Target is, you folks are all in the market. Target wants to get rid of their access point into the mall, probably more than anybody. So they're excited to get rid of that. We will be giving them a new exterior facing entrance, which is planned to be in the southeast corner, or I'm sorry, southeast corner of their store as part of this, but they will be standalone and not connected to any other buildings.
How about the impact of their business during construction? Are you making some plans for that?
Well, fortunately, they have access to Elm Street, which is really helpful. That's always the most challenging aspect that we deal with on these mall projects is providing continual access to any businesses that are going to operate that we're not going to demolish. This is really fortunate where, and you can see it on here, all of the access drives that currently serve Target from the north are going to remain in place. None of those will be disturbed. So Target will have continual access through the duration of construction.
That's good. And finally, the new exit and entrance of the right turn in, right turn out. I'm a little concerned about that because that Freshwater can be very, very busy. And I'm concerned about backups in that area. because of that access road. You might want to, as you go along and start your development plans, you might want to look at that to see if that's going to be a big problem for you. I know I saw this traffic study and went through it, and I know you're anticipating a lot less volume of cars than when the mall was fully open. But but it concerns me because there's a lot of traffic. I mean, there's a Costco right down the road. Home Depot gets a ton of business. Costco gets a ton of business. Dick's is there. There's a lot of traffic, and the road is sometimes difficult to maneuver when you're driving there. So you might want to just look at that.
Okay.
True.
Terrence?
Yeah, I would say the same thing as Mr. Helinski there is the entrance into the mall on Freshwater. The only other question I had that I hadn't heard yet is currently we have parking and bus transportation to Hartford. And is there going to be available room for that, or are we thinking about that, or are we just going to cut that out?
Yeah, I think that might have been the first question that was asked. But to answer your question, we were a little surprised. We were unaware that this was being used as a commuter parking lot. There's no agreements in place, and there's nothing recorded against the property. I would imagine, obviously, this mall is completely underutilized, right? I mean, there's huge portions of the parking lot that just makes sense to house it here. In terms of our redevelopment, we will be taking out all the existing parking lots, all of the existing utilities, and then we'll be regrading the site. So there will be a period of time where there won't be any parking. As to whether we're going to be able to provide that commuter parking within the site in the future, I don't know the answer to that yet. A lot of that is going to depend. My suspicion is probably not. A lot of these users that are going to come into the site, I'll just give you Target, for example. They're going to want their parking field to be utilized for their customers, and it's going to be an active parking lot versus an empty lot for a mall. Same with any of the other national tenants that I think we are in discussions with to come to this property. So I think that's something that we need to work through long term. I don't have an answer for you, though, on what that will entail for this property.
The other question I have is all the existing buildings on the outskirts. Is any of this, how is any of this going to affect those businesses in the time you're doing all the construction and tearing everything up and all that?
Yeah, fortunately, everybody on the north end, which are all of the out parcels except one, will have their access remain. So there's a few of them. I'll click on them here. You can't really see them on this plan. Well, actually, here, let me back up. So all these folks up here, Wendy's, Figaro, Popeyes, Friendly's, they're going to continue to have their access as shown here. So there shouldn't be any disruption to those folks. Everything that's not shown in kind of this new color will just remain as is today. So Raising Cane's, the multi-tenant building is serviced off directly from Freshwater, but all these folks will continue to have access as is. The one that we will work with in terms of phasing of our construction to make sure they do have continual access is Webster Bank. They're located here in the southeast corner. So as we do the work for this new area on this ring road, we'll just make sure that we phase that they have continual access through the duration of construction.
Good answer, because that was my next question about Webster Bank. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, and all of these, just so you're aware, all of these properties are subject to an existing declaration, which is what governs the property and the access points throughout. We are likely to assume the role as called declarant under that agreement, and an obligation to provide that access. So we'll make sure that's that's continued.
Thank you.
Frank?
Thank you. Thank you guys for doing this tonight. Appreciate it. I think you probably answered one of my first questions, Mr. Lynch's question. So when Anmart first came, they asked us to subdivide that into 13 different lots. So all the northern Elm Street parcels, do you control those? They're not going to be part of the covenant?
We do not control those.
Those are all been sold off.
Yep. The only thing that we're acquiring, it'll be easier to see on, again, this site plan. All of these non-colorized parcels, we do not own or control.
The covenants, the agreement that's in place now,
Mm-hmm.
include those parcels.
Yeah, so there's certain conditions, that everybody needs to abide by, right? If I'll give you an example, maintaining this access road here, for future snow removal, right? There's a number of parties that contribute to that.
I can't see your cursor.
So like the access road that runs around the exterior of the property, for snow removal,
The ring
right?
road?
This isn't yes, yep. Things like maintenance, everybody contributes to that, all of the parcels that are party to that agreement. It's not like we can control everything they do. It's more so specified what folks can't do, right?
So the other lots that are in the shaded gray, we'll say, are not going to be part of the covenants anymore?
There'll be an existing declaration. It will likely be amended to account for.
Word, am I using the right word?
No, I
Covenants?
think you are. Yeah, covenants. Yeah,
Okay.
that's an interchangeable term for it. We will likely file a new set of covenants or amend the existing to account for what's happening here. Those covenants are really set up and were set up for an enclosed mall. That's just not the case anymore. There's all these subdivided parcels. So it will likely be amended to account for what is happening moving forward.
So they're going to be standalone properties belonging to different entities?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so that brings me to my next question. You had said that the infrastructure is going to be completely redone.
Mm-hmm.
How does that going to work with those gray shaded buildings that aren't in your control? For example, sanitary. Are you going to run all new sanitary connections to those buildings on Elm Street? And I know there's been sanitary problems coming out of the west entrance and going into Elm Street over the years, and you need to talk to WPC about that. But do you plan on reconnecting water and sanitary and everything to those other buildings?
It's a great question. No. So their existing utility service for all of these parcels on the north end will not change. We will make.
Aren't they all tied in from the inside of the mall?
No, and Dean can probably speak to that.
Yeah, I can help answer that question. So some of them are and some of them are not. I would say most of them are, just for ease of explanation here. We can assume most of them are. For the purposes of what we put together right now for our preliminary utility design, we would be intercepting the mains that come in off of either Elm or mostly off of Elm and rerouting those around the proposed ring road. So let's say, for instance, the most western entrance, there are, a number of utilities that run down that side, namely, let's say water and sanitary we can pick up there. We would pick up the main and run it west and south down around the ring road and tie into the southern main that the town has at the southern end of this site. Similarly, we would do that along the eastern side of the site as well and intercept those mains. So there may be, for a short period of time, and I'm talking, perhaps hours, where there would be like an interruption maybe to the service to those buildings where we would need to coordinate that. But we intend to intercept those mains. The point of connection from where the actual parcels connect to that main would not change. We would not be touching that, but we would be routing everything essentially downstream of that to reroute those mains to open up the interior of the site.
I guess that's the word I was going to use then. So the laterals that go into those other buildings, are going to remain? And
Correct.
you're going to be able to pick them up and tie back in?
Correct. The laterals that come off the main that serve those out parcels that will remain will stay as existing. Our only intention at this time is to take wherever the main runs and intercept that to reroute it for us to be able to open up the interior of the site.
Done extensive study on those laterals and all? Do you know where they all exist? Are you sure
So-
you're going to be able to do that?
So we've had utility surveys completed out there, and we're still at a 50% level of detailed design for this. However, from what we have and the information that we have out there, it seems like there's a path forward for us to be able to do that and intercept those lines. Obviously, we're not at a full construction level detail just yet on it, but based on our 50% level of detail and engineering, we feel that it's possible, yes.
Okay, I have a lot of experience, a lot of experience with that parcel, and I know it's kind of a little crazy. It's been there for 40 years, and some of that stuff you may find needs to be addressed further. So if you come across it, I'm sure you're going to have to do it. But there may be stuff in there that you can't even see on a map.
That's right.
So
I would not doubt that.
These mall projects are certainly not without some surprises.
the other, so again, back to the other buildings, they're not going to be involved in in your covenants or your maintenance, or you're maintaining the ring roads, and that's it.
Yep. Correct.
Okay. Because the 13 lot issue was a big issue when they came here. There was some public comments, public participation that didn't want to see us do that, but they made a great argument, and we did do the 13 separate lots. So I hope this is all going to work out and fit into your plan. I'm really excited about this. You guys want to get it done, finish it up, so you're going to have to, make any changes to your infrastructure or utilities that have to be done, I would guess, to get to the end. And the other thing I wanted to ask you is the Route 190 entrance road where the motels are. There's a few buildings there. Are those under your control?
Talking about right there where I highlighted?
No, coming off of Route 190, there's an entrance.
Phoenix Ave.
Phoenix Ave, yeah, it says Phoenix, right, because it looks like,
Southernmost access.
right, so.
South of this?
Right, yeah,
No, it's not.
all right. Because on this big drawing, the overview, I could see the road, then you see Hazard Avenue, but on your smaller depictions, you don't see that road, it just says Phoenix. Yeah. So I'm just a little confused about that little piece coming into, well, it comes into the back of your property.
Yeah,
That's still going to be your road? Are you maintaining that road coming off of 190?
All the way up, no. We take over right basically at this point. That's correct, Dean, right?
Currently, the property boundary actually does encompass that road that goes all the way down to Hazard. But our improvements would stop at where that colorized white hatching is shown. We intend to leave the remainder of that access road that's called out as Phoenix Ave, as is an existing. And the parcels that are on the east and west sides of those, we don't control those, and we don't plan to have any improvements that would affect those parcels.
That's not a public road going in there. Who's going to control that road?
Well, it is currently part of the parcel that would ultimately be acquired, but we're not proposing any improvements on it. So it is something that would be maintained as a part of this acquisition.
Concerned about the maintenance part of it, about improvements right now. I just want to make sure that that's going to be kept up during the weather we have now.
Yes, so there are, I'm sure you're aware, there's a number of parcels on this site. I believe 7, perhaps 9 of which are under the control of what we're talking about here for the proposed improvements. The largest one, it encompasses most of the central portion of the site, and it does include that southern entrance road. And so the parcel boundary just follows that road as it goes down, and it hits Hazard. So that is within the property boundary.
Okay.
I think we're on the same page there.
Okay, good.
set.
All right, yeah, yep, okay, thank you. Well, I'm sure we'll be seeing you again.
Joe?
More bites at the apple?
Yep.
No,
Okay.
all my questions got answered already.
Any? You're all set? Okay, now you got me. Woo. Yeah.
You thought I was back.
Yeah. Okay, I am looking at this, and what my first initial reaction is you're just rearranging the parking places, and I don't see any open space. And part of the thing that I know you're from Nebraska and out west, and I've ridden out west, and I've seen miles and miles of corn and soybeans, and we don't have that open space. So us New Englanders covenant our open space. And our regulations for a multifamily development requires 1,000 square feet per unit. And I'm looking at a lot of parking here. So what is your plan? How are you planning to give us the open space and amenities that are going to be required for this 450 apartment complex that you want to build?
Yeah, well, I'd answer that in two steps. One, tonight we're not coming with any requests.
These are things
for
that I want
interior.
you to think about and put into your final plans, because I am a New Englander, and we don't have that wide open space that you guys have out in Nebraska. And yeah, I mean, I ride a lot out west, so I spend a lot of time out there. So that is one of the things in our and so I really want you to think about that in this development, because right now all I see is a lot of parking, and that's one of the things that the town has been trying to move away from, putting a little bit more green space into our developments. And another question is how many of these have you completed, these redevelopment projects? I'm just curious. I just, once bitten, twice shy. We were expecting great things from Namdar, and we didn't get it. So, now we're a little gun shy. So
Yeah.
help me out.
I don't know. We've probably completed 75 large mixed-use developments, specifically from Namdar. This will be the fourth mall I've acquired from Namdar. And I would be more than happy. I think Lori has quite a, Lori might have these details that she can just forward you. If she doesn't, I'm happy to send it to you. I could send you 3 projects that are either completed or underway right now with mixed-use developments of this size, specifically of malls that involved, again, multifamily, retail, commercial. Totally hear what you're saying on the green space. That's a huge priority for us too. Ultimately, we do retain ownership of the multifamily. We're very active in developing that. I don't know, probably have 4,000 units within various stages. But we want to amenitize them. We want them to be very desirable places to live. And a huge part of that is green space and amenities, right? So I would say we are committed to that. I'd be happy to send over examples of projects that we've done, just so it's not all smoke and mirrors. And again, we're developing all across the country, not just Nebraska. So definitely involved in places that are more constrained from a land perspective. Hurts my heart to not see a cornfield nearby this mall, but we'll
Not
still
saying
develop
we don't
it
have
regardless.
cornfields, but they're only a couple of acres. They're not miles, trust me.
Right.
But
I think there's probably room to fit a small cornfield in either of these green spaces. So never know what might show up in one of these.
yeah.
We have cornfields, but no moonshine.
There you go.
Well, I appreciate you coming before us. I'm looking forward to seeing what you can come up with in your final plans. I'm excited. There's a lot of good things happening here in Enfield, between the train station, another big project by the river, and finally something happening. One more question.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to like put you really on the spot here. A timeline, is this going to take 5 years, 10 years? People want to know. They've been looking at this mall area for a long time, so.
Yeah, I would tell you what we intend to do. As I think everybody knows, a big piece of this development is contingent on CIF financing. We are underway with a fairly large CIF request. The challenge with these malls and all the ones that we have completed to date involve a large private-public partnership. They just don't make sense to redevelop otherwise. That's why there's such a epidemic of enclosed malls that are just rotting away, is they're totally cost prohibitive when it comes to redeveloping. They're all really well located, just like Infield Square, but they come along with huge redevelopment costs. So CIF funding is a key to it. We just found out, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, that we did successfully obtain brownfield remediation grant in the amount of $4 million. It's conditioned on getting CIF funding to make sure we have our full capital stack, but that was a really big step for us. And then we have our agreement with the town in place. So all that to say, CIF funding is crucial. The application for that is December 13th, and it's probably 90 days until you hear back on that. Our hope would be if we do successfully obtain that, I would like to commence some level of demolition late summer of next year. There are a number of tenants currently in the mall that we would need to notify and give them time to either relocate or do whatever they're going to do. We have pretty much all those agreements in place. So we need to give them time for those folks to relocate. And then our intent would be to do a full demolition. So that would likely take probably 6 to 9 months. There'll be a solid period of environmental remediation that'll need to take place. That's probably a 3 to 6 month time frame. But the parking lots, utilities, a lot of that stuff can be demolished while we're working on the mall structure. And then from there, it's probably 12 to 18 months to do the site work to get it in this condition here. But I'm confident, once we acquire the property and start demolition, we're going to have a few users that are ready to go. So those could be a couple of users that are in this retail lineup. My hope would be to kick off a phase. We won't do the full 450 units in one phase. That will be a phased delivery. We do have a couple of pad users that I think will be ready to go. So I think within 3 years of acquiring the property, you're gonna have users open and operating. In terms of the full build out, it's just gonna depend on market demand. For our other projects, I'm doing a project that's almost the exact same size as this now, and we acquired that in March of 2023. So not quite 2 years. And what I'd like to do, I'd like to just send you a video. I'll do that to Lori, and then she can filter it to this commission to show kind of where we're at on that project. But we've got 15 users open. We're doing a super target in that project. We have a number of outlaw users open, and that's less than 24 months after we acquired it, even in a really challenging interest rate environment. So that would be our intent with this project too.
Great. Thank you. Yes, Lori. I'm sorry, I didn't ask.
I thought this was a good point to pipe in. So Woodsonia is a very successful and devoted developer. They are very serious about doing this project here in our town. The reason they really wanted to come tonight was just to show you what's going to be involved with the demo and the excavation. They will be required to get an excavation permit, wetlands permit, and floodplain modification permit. So they kind of wanted to show you what that's going to entail and kind of get your, vote of confidence or something along those lines. You can see how they're grading the property. It's going to be sort of coming into a bowl. And if you see that lower kind of modified T shape,
Yes.
That's actually, I believe, the drainage basin that they're going to need for all of the construction activity. And Dean, please correct me if I'm wrong here. So,
Nope, that is correct, Lori.
you know, it's going to be a major grading job here. It's not going to be pretty. You know, dirt is dirt.
Dirt is
But
dirt.
it's a means to an end.
Right, and
So-
looking forward to seeing the end.
So I don't know if you, Mitch or Dean, want to say anything more, or?
I think the grading might be prettier than what's sitting there right now. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents. on that.
I don't mean to say that it's going to be that ugly, but it's not going to be a pretty building until you get this done. So.
Right.
Sure.
Lori, I didn't quite catch what you said that little T spot down the bottom is going to be.
In the diagram.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, that's going to be an actual drainage basin.
Okay.
So, which is pretty large because they're going to be grading a large area.
And that's going to be like that? It's going to be like
For a
a
little
pond?
while, yeah.
Oh, then it'll be gone.
Right.
It's
just-
temporary.
It's
Yeah,
just
temporary.
during
Oh, okay.
construction.
That's
I know
a
there's That's where
temporary-
the brook is back there that runs between the 2 properties,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yep, that's
Right, but it's
correct.
gonna
That
be-
that basin is it's a shallow basin. It's large for us to be able to take up a footprint, and it's an interim condition basin that's there for construction purposes.
I also just wanted to reiterate that regardless of ownership, this all being one property and one mall, there are covenants, conditions, and restrictions that they will all have to adhere to. So.
Okay, so is that where I was going?
Yes, that's
Could
where
you?
you're- yes, so
Okay.
they will not own it all, but they will modify, and they've claimed that they're going to modify the CC&Rs that are in place now because it's no longer one building, so
Right,
there'll
but-
probably be more cross easements and things
When
of
we
that
did
nature.
when we did the 13, that's when we put the covenants in.
No, they were already there.
When we split the 13 lots up, isn't that when we made the new covenants?
No.
No, they were already there. They just had more owners.
Right, that's right. We had to put more owners.
It
Okay.
was just more ownerships, more parcels, but they all were covered by that overall CC&R
Okay.
document.
And that's going to be revised or whatever we need
Right.
to do. Okay.
When they get their final plans in.
Because I remember it was like a 30-page document.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's and.
And
yeah,
we
they
made
are.
them file it with the town clerk, and we had a whole big discussion
Exactly.
about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's all I
Everybody
have.
All set now? For now? All right. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Approval of the minutes for November 21st, 2024.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, any corrections, changes? All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. We got a town attorney's report. You all saw that. Zoning enforcement officer sent us some information about Pheasant Hill in your packet. So, okay, this time, public participation. Anyone in the audience would like to speak about anything that's not on the agenda? Anyone? It's third time? No one? Okay. We're going to close public participation.
Madam Chair, can I interrupt
Oh,
you for a second,
sure.
just for a point of order? When we had public speaking last week, there was no ground rules or proper decorum explained, and no time limits were given. And I don't know if we're going to be doing that going forward.
There was
Just kidding.
only 2 people at the time, and because it was a public hearing, they do get to rebuttal everything the attorney says.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not always just one time for the public, because the
No, I
attorney
understand that.
answers, and no. because
I
it
allowed
was
the
all-
people to come back up, but
Right.
I kind of gave a time limit
Right, but
and tell them to be
because-
nice and all that.
Right, they-
We're going to do that again?
Yeah, I mean, it was just 2 people, very seasoned participants. So
Yeah, I noticed they're very seasoned, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Would you explain what very seasoned means?
They're here a lot, and they are also
I'm kidding.
commissioners
I'm
and
kidding.
other
We
boards.
just don't want any filibusters.
So, okay, I will entertain a motion to move items 14 and 16A through C.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. So we are going to go down to public hearing. Mr. Secretary?
Yes, the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing at the regular meeting of Thursday, December 5th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following applications. Public hearing number 3109, 555 Taylor Road, application for special use permit for a new pylon sign. Sam Shrievener, applicant, Mullen Road LLC owner, map 99, lot 11, I-1 zone.
Okay, Lori, Georgie?
I do not see the applicant present, so I'm not sure if you want to move this at the end or continue it to the next meeting.
I could use consensus of the commission. Do you want to table it to the next meeting or move forward? Yes?
I don't see much use doing it if the applicant's not here. I mean, if we
Okay.
have questions or something,
All right,
I think we
I'm
should
just
just
not sure.
table
I'm
it.
just not sure if they're late. I'm not sure what's going on.
okay.
Okay, well, if they do come in.
If
then
they
we
do
can-
come in, we'll come back
Yeah.
to that.
And if they don't come in, then what do? Do we say we just move it, or do we say they can apply again?
No, it
because
gets
they didn't show up?
continued.
No, we can just table it until next meeting.
Well,
Well, that's when they have to be opened, but, yeah, I get where you're going, sorry. Sorry. So,
Okay, so should we table it now?
We
And then
can.
we can always remove it from the table if
yes.
they come?
Yes,
And then at least it's on the table and we know where it is.
okay.
Okay, I make a motion to table the public hearing 3109.
second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we'll table that for now. Okay, new business, SPR 1943, Mr. Secretary.
SBR number 1943, 3 Palumba Drive, application for modification of SPR number 1924 for an addition onto a rear of the building. Thomas Adams Rick, applicant, owner, map 57, lot 320, BR zone.
Okay. Lori or Georgie, do
Palumba.
you want to give
Yep,
us a little
so-
quick?
Of course. So, good evening, everybody. This application was previously before you back in, I think it was 2023, where they were applying for an addition back then, which was a little bit smaller. Today, they would like to propose a larger addition and try to make it a little bit more beneficial for the existing business. So, they are seeking a waiver of the required parking spaces in section 1010.2 from 94 to 33 spaces. This waiver was originally granted in SPR 1924. They did get their wetlands approval, and that copy was within your packets. And I did have one outstanding comment about clarifying the landscaping requirements per parking spaces under section 1010.7.bi and B2. And this was clarified via email with Rebecca, where the percent minimum is satisfactory for the regulations. So that comment has now been cleared.
Okay.
And then all the other departmental comments have been satisfied, so all there really is to take note of is a waiver for parking.
Okay. Hi, welcome. Name and
Oh.
address, please.
Sure. Is this on?
Yes.
Okay. Rebecca Lee with R. Levesque Associates, located at 40 School Street, and that's in Westfield, Massachusetts.
Okay. So tell us Tell us what you're going to do.
Sure. Open up the plans. All right.
Okay.
So this site is 3 Paloma Drive. As you may know, it's at the corner of Elm Street and Paloma Drive. Currently on this property, there's 3 existing businesses. There's Midas and there's Town Fair Tire on the corner. Enfield Collision is tucked in the back there, and that's the portion of the property that we're going to be talking about tonight. There is a portion of the property that's within the upland review area, as Georgie had mentioned. We did go in front of the IWWA and received approval for the proposed site improvements within their jurisdiction. So moving on to the site plan or site layout plan here. I guess I can't really zoom in. So the proposed addition is 4,147 square feet. This is, probably 3 times bigger than what the original application was for. This is to support their current operations at Enfield Collision. The addition would essentially be used for storage, as well as there will be 2 detailing booths, paint booth inside. The addition will have overhead doors along the northern side and along the southern side to promote one-directional traffic through the rear of the site and also through that addition. Parking spaces, so currently, although not very well delineated, there's about 36 parking spaces. The proposed improvements would yield 35 parking spaces around the exterior of the building, and then there will be some additional parking spaces on the inside of the addition outside of the booth. So there will be a total of 4 kind of waiting spaces for vehicles prior to entering the detailing booths. Parking will be delineated along the western side of the building. The parking area to the north of the existing building will remain the same. We are proposing to add an enclosed dumpster area, kind of that northern corner, and then some overflow parking similar to what's there now, just kind of reconfigured. And we also reduced the amount of impervious surface to provide some snow storage and green space in the northern corner here. Move on to the grading and drainage plan. So for grading, we're really only planning on disturbing the rear of the portion of the site, and that's mainly to accommodate the building addition to make sure that the finished floor elevations are similar to the existing. And then also we want to pick up the back of that overflow parking lot to promote sheet flow to the existing catch basins that are already on site. Wow, my vision is really failing me right now. There's one that's over in this area. I think it's what I'm highlighting here. And then there's a catch basin over in here. As far as utilities go, the only change to that would be a new sanitary sewer lateral where we'll be installing a new floor drain in the addition. And then there will be a new detailing booth on the inside of the existing building, so a new floor drain will be added to that and connected into that lateral. The lateral will feed into an oil water separator, but prior to discharging into the existing system on site. And then as far as landscaping goes, the existing area is mainly developed. It's mainly impervious. We are introducing new roof area, so that will all be clean runoff. And we are reducing the overall impervious area, adding plantings where we can. We're proposing 2 new trees in the northern corner. There's a landscaped area along the eastern side of the building, providing a 10-foot separation between the building and the parking lot. And then there's some landscaped islands around the building as well. This is the photometric plan, so there will be some new wall packs being mounted to the building addition. So this is just signifying all these little numbers that there will be no light pollution past the property line. And then I will pull up, let's see, the architecturals. Again, I can't really, I can zoom. Hang on 1 second here. Just try to get it into full scope. So what we're looking at here is the western elevation. So this is the existing building. The 2 interior doors will be discontinued because we'll have a parking area in the front. And then these 2 doors will remain in operation. This area here is the office space. So right here, this will be like the office and the parts manager, the service manager. And then this will be the addition and the exit doors. This is the southern elevation. So at the peak of the new addition, it will be 16 feet tall. This is the northern elevation and then eastern elevation. Let me open up the floor plan. So this is the existing building here, and then this is the addition. There will be some passageway in between the 2 buildings. The appropriate fire rating materials will be used. And at this point, I'd welcome any questions and do my best to field them.
Anybody have questions? Ken?
I do. Yes, I was wondering about you're asking for a waiver for the number of parking spaces. So what is your basic justification for only needing 33 or 34 spaces versus the 94 or so that we require?
Sure. Yeah, we actually have a write-up on this in the actual application that kind of explains it pretty well. So I'll just read it if you don't mind.
Sure.
So as part of this project, provisions for a total of 35 exterior parking spaces are proposed, including one of which is handicap and van accessible, as well as 4 interior parking spaces. The project includes provisions for a 2-way, 24-foot wide access drive adjacent to the northern face of the building, as well as a 1-way clockwise circulation around the perimeter of the existing building and proposed addition. The project site is currently accessed through a 2-way northernmost curb cut and 1-way southernmost curb cut along Palomba Drive, both of which are proposed to remain unchanged. According to Table 10.10.2 of the Town of Enfield zoning bylaw, automotive service stations require 1 space per employee, 6 spaces per service bay, and 1 space per service vehicle. Under this regulation, the project site requires 94 parking spaces. Based on the operational history of the project site, which has been in business since 1991, the applicant believes that the amount of proposed parking to be sufficient for its operation. The existing business operates on an appointment-only schedule, allowing the applicant control over the number of cars present on site. Historically, the applicant has experienced a typical parking lot volume of no more than 75% of the existing parking provided. Additionally, the scale of the proposed building addition allows for 4 interior vehicle parking and staging, reducing some of the need for outdoor off-street parking spaces. Therefore, the applicant respectfully requests that the Planning and Zoning Commission grant a waiver of the required off-street parking spaces. So essentially, the business will operate as it always has. They're just adding some service. They're adding extra service, so a paint booth and a detail bay, so that once the cars are fixed, they can, clean it up and give it back to their customers on an appointment-only schedule.
Okay. So I guess through the chair to staff, where does the 94 really come from? Does that cover like all aspects of that particular area?
It's for the use of that portion of the property. That's what the use requires for the parking regs. So by granting this waiver, not only does it help the business, but it also reduces impervious surface of the parking lot.
Okay, but what type of business would
It's auto
require
repair.
like 94?
It goes, well, Rebecca just stated it into the record, what the parking requirement was.
Yep.
I don't have it in front of me. Give me 1 second. In the regulations, and the parking table states a certain specific requirement for auto service stations. It's kind of a weird requirement: 1 per employee, 3 per service bay, 6 per service bay if BR district, and 1 service vehicle. So that's the breakdown for that use.
So that's adds up to the 94? Oh, okay.
Based off what the business has.
Okay.
If I may add to that, so it's a pretty generic classification of different uses. So this was what was closely related to this use. Although it's our understanding that this is more so for oil changes, people that are coming and going. Automotive service station wasn't defined in the bylaw, so it's this was the closest one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I got you. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? John?
I guess just to be clear that if a variance is granted, it'll stay with this use. If the use goes away, building gets sold, different tenant comes in, new requirement. It doesn't stay with the parcel. It stays with the use. Is that
I'm
the way
sorry,
I
you said
understand it?
variance.
What's that?
This
It's a
is a waiver.
variance.
This isn't a variance.
Okay. Well.
The special use permit?
Yeah. Well, the waiver is going to stay with this specific tenant or
It's
use.
for this specific
this.
approval.
A new business comes in, they'd have to meet the parking requirement, current and so
Yep.
forth. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Frank?
Just one thing. You mentioned in your statements about the oil water separator. So that was that after added to this? Was it in a second go around? Because health said they didn't see any separator. Just a comment from the health department. I was just wondering if they didn't catch it or is it there? Right.
Yeah, it says it does
Site plan
include.
includes a proposed salt,
Okay.
proposed oil water, so.
All right. So that's health's good. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you.
was always required per the plumbing
For
code.
the
For the floor
flooring?
drains,
Yeah.
right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? No? Joe? You all set?
Yeah, I think so.
Terrence? You all set?
Almost.
I just have one quick thing. In your traffic flow, and you're going into a clockwise direction, but there's an existing building in front of you. I'm just afraid, is there going to be signage, do not enter, and this exit driveway that you're on the southern end?
So there's a do not enter to not go in towards the property, but I think what you're asking is there a sign for in between number 3 and number 5, right, Palumba Drive?
Yeah, just so that people, when they come out of your property, they're not zipping around some kind of direction to flow them so that they're not interfering with the building in front of you.
We can certainly add something
I'm
if that would
just
help clarify.
Trying to figure it out.
There's an 18-foot wide drive aisle behind the parking spaces, which isn't we wouldn't necessarily have that for a two-way traffic flow pattern, right?
Yeah.
So we can certainly put something in to help, direct patrons to only be going in that one direction. I'm not sure how that would look with the different leases, because since they're different.
Right, I'm just
Yeah.
looking at this, and, you've got them coming out on the south side, and I don't know where they're going. If I were there for the first time, I know this property, but if I was there for the first time, it's like, now where? Do I just take a right here? Do I go all the way around? So,
Okay, yeah,
just
that's
some kind
that's
of
a
direction.
valid comment, and we can
Alright.
certainly add signage to help clarify that, yep.
All right, thank you. Anything else that you'd like to?
Follow up on that.
Sure. Go ahead.
Just to follow up, please, on the traffic. It looks like you had to make one correction. The Police Traffic Division reviewed, completed one comment on signage that the applicant addressed,
That's correct.
right?
So that's the signage, under the signage table on sheet D2. The comment was that they wanted, so these signs came directly from CTDOT. They wanted a different ADA sign. So the plan is to provide that sign that the, I think it was police.
Yeah, Traffic
Police
Division, yeah,
required,
Police
yep.
Department. That was the only one they had?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All set? Yes, please.
I just want to add a quick comment to Commissioner Helinski's question about parking. It was a good question. I mean, a lot of times it's parking requirements are kind of dressed up as a science with very exact numbers, and that's to seem very scientific, and they often come from parking studies that are done from across the country in different similar uses, but not necessarily the same exact environment. There's a lot of variability. So and then a lot of times parking requirements are above that just to be safe. So there's a lot of variation. So I appreciate the applicant kind of explaining, and I don't think there's anybody that knows their parking demand better than the applicant, especially somebody who's been there for 30 years.
Right.
So I appreciate you putting that in writing.
Thank you.
And also clarifying, the benefit for us and everybody is. I think you mentioned too that overall impervious coverage is decreasing now.
Correct.
Even with the addition of the new building.
Correct.
So that's I appreciate you clarifying that, and that's a benefit too. So, I'm glad you guys asked for the waiver. I mean, that is a lot of spaces. It's financially just would have been very very high cost to add 60 extra spaces and that you don't need. So yeah, I mean it's something for us to keep an eye out for and be flexible with.
Appreciate it.
Yes, Georgie.
I would just like to clarify for the motion, would you prefer a site-specific condition for enter signage of the site?
I think because they have to talk to another tenant on the site, I don't know if we I don't want to put an onus on the applicant to incur, some kind of rift between him and his.
That's fine. I just wanted to make
Neighbor.
sure if you wanted one or didn't want one.
No, I don't
Okay.
think it's net. I think if there's some kind of, do not enter one way, hopefully people will figure it out. It's not big, but it's just something if you were never there, you might be, what do I do? So, okay. I'm sure people will figure it out. If not, they can always go inside and say, what do I do? I've done
There's
that.
a lot of parking on the overall site, so.
So,
Well, you just want to hope that it's not an idea to get more business.
no, that's another
know?
idea. Yay. It's a good thing, so, okay. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing.
Oh, not public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize.
But on that, I'd like to make a motion to approve a waiver of section 10.10.2, the required amount of parking spaces of 94 to 33 per section 10.10.3.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Yes. Linda DeGray.
4.
Frank Alamo.
4.
Kenneth Helinski.
4.
Vinnie Grillo. 4. Joseph Muley.
4.
Terrence Lynch.
4.
And John Petronella is 4.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion, Madam Chair, to approve SPR number 1943, 3 Palumba Drive, application for a 48 by 60-foot modification of site, SPR number 1924, for an addition onto the rear of building Thomas Adams Surik, applicant owner, map 57, lot 320, BR zone, per the reference plans, reports, application materials listed herein with the following 26 conditions listed.
So, second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Yes, Linda DeGray,
4.
Frank Alamo,
4.
4.
Vinnie Grillo, 4, Joseph Muley,
4.
Terrence Lynch,
4.
and John Petronella is 4.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your
Thank you.
time. Appreciate it.
And good luck with your addition.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next here.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah, next item was SPR number 1944, 525 Enfield Street, application for a site plan modification to SPR number 1929, 515, 525, and 543 Enfield Street, 525 Enfield Street LLC, applicant owner, Dana Steele, applicant's rep, map 33, lots 263 to 267, BG zone, Enfield Street, design overlay.
Okay, Lori or Georgie?
This is a modification of a previous well, I think we all know that Ardioli Dodge had the fire and basically destroyed their whole site, and so they got approval to rebuild it. They did that, and then they came in for a modification for phasing, and now they're coming in for a modification for basically trying to utilize what had previously been done on the site. So basically historical usage, and that's about it. I'm going to let
Okay.
you take it away, Dana.
Go for it, Dana.
Thank you. For the record, Dana Steele, professional engineer with J.R. Russo and Associates. We prepared the original site plans back in February of '23 that came before you to replace the building that had burned down. And as Lori mentioned, in January, we actually came back twice. We came back in January for some site modifications. We took the parking and we oriented it into 90 degrees. After further consideration, they liked the way that laid out better. Changed some lighting, addressed some DOT comments, and we made a change to this new vehicle delivery area in the corner, eliminating some landscaping around the corner of that building. So that was back in January, and then in February we came back again because the building now was done. They were ready to move in, but there was a few items that weren't done. But we didn't have a phasing plan, so we had to come back to you for a phasing plan so they could allow us to move into the building with a few items not completed yet. So you gave us that approval. They moved into the building, so they've been there since February, and now they're looking for their final CO. Because everything's done. We did an as-built survey to document what was completed, and there was a few items that were not consistent with the approved plan, which I brought to the attention of the staff, and in the course they said, all right, well, we can't issue a final CO till these things are resolved. So that's why we're here to find a resolution for these items and figure out a path forward. So we're asking for approval for a couple of things, and I've highlighted them on the plan here. The first is a storage container, which is in the northeast corner of the of the site behind the secondary. What would you call this? Bob, a
building?
service building or?
It's our part, we use it for part storage now.
So it's their parts storage building, and they have a container here, and they keep automotive parts in that container because they didn't have enough room in the building for that. Originally, they had it there after the fire, right, to afford.
That's been there 10 years. I don't know how long,
Okay.
but it's been there for a long time.
Bob, could you give us your name and address? I'm sorry.
You can use this if you want.
We know who you are, but for people in the audience.
Bob Ardioli. Hello. Apologize, Dana doesn't have a fancy presentation this evening.
It's okay.
Yeah, so we've had that storage container from before the fire. We keep engines and transmissions that are taken out of vehicles that are waiting to be picked up from Chrysler. They're called cores. We leave them in there. I did not realize that it was not shown on the plan that came in the last time we came in. So when we showed it at the end here to get our CO, it became a topic of discussion. So we would like to keep the storage container and do whatever we need to do. Because although we built a much bigger building, we still have to rent space off-site for our parts as well as use this container for what we're using it for. So if we can figure out a way to keep it, it would be great.
So the issue with the container is your regulation, section 3.30.14, does not allow storage containers in commercial zones, which is this. It is allowed in the I-1 and the I-2 zone, but this is not an I-1 and I-2 zone. Interestingly, your regulations do allow accessory structures, and if this were an accessory structure, it would be in compliance. Even though it's over the side yard, your regulations only require a 5-foot setback for accessory structures. But if you look at it, it looks like a storage container. We're not trying to tell you that it doesn't. So that's the issue there. In looking at your regulations, section 3.30.7, A5, Roman numeral 5, on accessory buildings, says any building attached to a principal building by structural members, except for walls or fences not more than 6 feet high, shall be considered an integral part of the principal building. So talking with my client about it, I said, well, what if we took the storage container and moved it over and then attached it to the building? If it was attached to the building, according to your regulation, it's now part of the building and it's no longer a storage container. So wondering what you think about that as a solution to this problem. Obviously, if this was removed and an actual shed was installed, it would comply. But there's costs associated with that. So this is already there. And so they would like to try to work something out with this. So the question is, can that be done? And so that was one idea that he had suggested was doable. I know Lori and I discussed this kind of generally about like what's the difference between accessory building and a storage container. What do you have to do to a storage container to make it no longer a storage container? It's really not defined in your regulations, but this seems to be one way if it's actually attached to the building. The way I read it. So that's one option. Also, your regulations do allow storage containers on a temporary basis. So just to point that out as well, in section 3.30.14, section AE, it states the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission may allow temporary containers in industrial and business districts in conjunction with a site plan approval, which is what we are here tonight, provided that the need for such temporary container is identified during the review process and the location and timing are specified on the site plan. So as of now, we have a location specified temporarily. We've been describing to you the need. We don't have a time frame on here because initially we weren't thinking in those directions. But it might make sense for you to approve the storage container to stay there for a temporary time until a permanent solution can be resolved. Maybe 6 months would give us through the spring to be able to get something resolved. So if the commission is open to that, that's something that we would like to you to consider. In addition to what we're going to do on a permanent basis. So that would not be for permanent, that would only be for a temporary period of time, if you think 6 months is reasonable for that. Okay, so the storage container is one issue. The second issue was this gravel parking area, which is shown in yellow here, along the southern boundary and the northern boundary in the back. When we came in originally, back in February of 2023, we had proposed gravel parking in this area. Now, this is residential all around here, and there's a 35-foot buffer requirement. If this was a new site, we'd have to honor a 35-foot buffer from those renters that couldn't have anything within those buffers. The reality is, Artioli Dodge has been there a long time, and they've always been in the buffer. We weren't proposing to increase the encroachment into it, but just to keep it the same. We showed the pavement like it's shown here, just to these limits. We didn't show on the site plan back in February of 2023 these areas as storage. In fact, we showed it as snow stockpile areas. Both in this area and this area. And the applicant's intention is that there would continue to be snow stockpile areas. What happens is, with his business, time during certain fluxes in his business, he needs additional space. And so historically, what he's told me is that they've parked in these areas that were dirt, gravel kind of areas. They weren't their normal parking areas, but they would park under the canopies of the trees. They would park wherever they could whenever they needed more spaces. So the problem is we didn't show it on our site plan. So now that we're asking for a final CO, the town won't give it to us because they're saying you're parking in these areas and it wasn't shown on your site plan, so you got to correct that. So what we're back here to ask you, say, you allowed us to park in the buffer area here because we'd always done it before. And even though we neglected to ask you to do it originally, we're asking you to approve that now, to allow us to do what they've always been doing, which is periodically overflowing into these perimeter areas, which are within a buffer, but is consistent with the historical use of the site, according to the applicant. So we're requesting the approval to show these areas as parking areas. In addition to that, there's a drive aisle between this double row of storage outside display spaces and the gravel, and that was envisioned as a parking aisle. But what Bob is telling me, he says, well, if I get really crammed for space, why can't I park start double stacking them into the drive aisles too? And the only concern there would be, well, how does fire department feel about that? Is that going to be safe? And we did get comments back from the fire department. Earl Preventure commented that he didn't have a problem with it as long as the aisle around the building was maintained. So that was his concern. So we're only asking for the parking along this area here, this aisle here, to also be for additional storage. So that way, if the town comes out and sees that they've got some cars parked there, it doesn't become a problem, because we've now documented that may be an overflow area from time to time. So so those are the overflow parking questions. The next question is regarding parking in the front of the building along the island in the front. Now you can see this line here. This is the property line, and the pavement extends well past the property line into the state highway. There's a narrow island between the highway and this site, and it's always been like that. Well, I don't always, but it's been like that a long time. And And so they've parked vehicles there. But when we came in the first time with the application, our understanding was that's when the state right-of-way commission doesn't have jurisdiction over that, which is essentially what staff has told you again in their report. You don't have jurisdiction over this parking. And so we're not really asking you to approve parking in this area. We're simply asking you to acknowledge that there is parking in this area, that they've been parking here, and their intention is to continue parking here. Now, one of the questions that came up in that process was from the police department. They said, well, we have a concern. If vehicles are parked here, is it going to affect sight lines along Route 5? And so I went out and checked, and the cars were parked right along there as was indicated, and I measured the sight line at each driveway. I determined that the sight line required for this road is 500 feet. You need to be able to see 500 feet in both directions in order for it to be safe in pulling out. Now, the way the state regulations do it, it's pretty conservative. You have to be back 15 feet from the road and still be able to see, and that creates a problem with the parking that's here. Not at this driveway. I can see 500 feet to the north, and I can easily see 500 feet to the south. The problem becomes with the northern curb cut and also Fremont Road. So when I checked both of those, looking to the south, the cars that were parked here were creating a problem. They were restricting. Instead of having 500 feet, I only had 350 feet, 400 feet. I was short of the required parking there. So we took a look at what would need to be done to make that work, and we really don't have to move it back that far. Just moving the spaces back 4 feet gave enough room so that you could see at 15 feet back. Now, the reality is to say, oh, we've got an unsafe condition there right now, right? We've got to address that. But the reality is that what people do, and you probably experienced this, when you get to a driveway where the sight line isn't good, you just pull out a little further. You just pull out to you're less than 15 feet. You're only 10 feet out, and then you can see. But that's not the standard. The standard is 15 feet, and we need to meet the standard. So, to do that, we're proposing to stripe this area along the island so that the cars will know to stop and not encroach into that area, because that's a sightline protection area. Now, the reality is, I mean, it's a paved area now, right? So if Artioli did not park cars here, and they anticipate that with the area all wide open, who's going to park there? Their customers are probably going to park there, and they're going to have to deal with trying to convince their customers not to park there. And so by having the vehicles parked there, which obviously it's a car dealership, they want to have the visibility for those vehicles. It's a good spot for display of vehicles, but they can control it more. They can decide where those cars are parked and that they don't encroach into that striped area. So I went back and forth with your police department, Matt, Mayor, and Matt agreed with our proposal. He was satisfied that with the striping that it would address the concern, and he suggested that there be a condition of approval on this site plan approval that said that the applicant shall maintain 500-foot sight line in both directions from each of the site driveways and from Fremont Road. He wanted to make sure that that was included in there. So both of the site driveways and Fremont Road shall maintain a 500-foot sight line. So we think that that's an appropriate condition and would agree to it. So I mentioned the police department. Engineering also had comments. They noted that because this area was not, these areas in yellow were not shown as gravel before, and now they are gravel, that could have a result in an increase in runoff, and he wants us to address that and make sure that we don't have a problem. So I haven't had a chance to work out a solution with John Cabibbo yet, but we would be happy with a condition of approval that we have to adjust the gravel as necessary to satisfy the town engineer that, that drainage will not be impacted. So we would ask you to consider that condition as well. Mentioned the fire department and already, so I think that's it. I think those are, so not a lot of issues, but the issue is if we have to address this somehow or he can't get a final CO. He's stuck right now. And so if we can get a temporary permission to keep this trailer, this storage container here until we can come up with a solution that complies with your regulations, that would be helpful. If you will allow these yellow areas to be used for parking of vehicles as they have historically, according to Applant, as you allowed on the east side already, and doing the same then on the north and the south side, and just acknowledge that there is parking in here. And we would be okay with adding also as a condition a note on the plan that specified that the parking here is not part of the town's jurisdiction, something like a note on there so it's clear. The issue is we have to go get a DMV permit too, and we want to show this parking on our DMV permit, but if we do that and it goes to back to the town and the town's going to say, well, that's not shown on the approved plan, this will creates another problem. So by acknowledging it but not approving it, I don't know if that's making sense, but that's how we're trying to come up with a solution so we can get this building that burned down finished, moved in with a final CO in a way that is acceptable to you. So thank you for hearing us, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay. Anybody have questions? Vinny?
Okay. Dana, the only thing that I'm having, the parking, yes, in the front. I've been buying vehicles there for 25 years. They've always had the parking there. My problem is that container. So you said that another option was to put it to the building. Can you show me, please, where you're talking about?
We would turn it the long way and abut right up to the back of our building. That's right there.
In the back side of it, where the...
Yes, it's something like... Something like that?
Yeah,
Up?
yes, the long
So,
way.
so taking it, turning it 90 degrees, and then butting it up against the building and attaching it to the building.
Okay. Is there anything against the building right now?
No.
In that spot? So, silly question, I know funds, whatever, you just built a beautiful place. And I know you guys came back because you didn't have it asphalted.
Right.
I see that's done.
It's done
That
now,
looks
yeah.
very nice. What's to say you couldn't throw, Dana, 3 walls off the side of the building and get rid of the container? That's not a big, I'm just saying, I know the expense, once again, but
Yeah, that's an option.
it's an option that's not
I think it would be more expensive. I think
as big as...
It would be more expensive. But yeah, and I think that's what staff had suggested, is that we should propose a building
right off the side of
than
it.
a storage container. But in looking at your regulations, it seems that there's a provision for that. Maybe that has to be fleshed out. Maybe we'll find that we can't do that. But if you give us a temporary approval for it right now, it gives us some time to figure out what's the best option.
Right, and I'm trying to work with you on that because the temporary is, okay, I get it, it's temporary, but when that's up and the solution's not there, then what do we do? So that's why I'm trying to come up with a solution to help
I
you.
suggest, could you put a roof on it and make it no longer look like a storage
that was the next
container?
thing I was going to say.
Yeah.
The reason we have a storage container instead of like a nice building from the barnyard or one of those places is because of the weight and the stuff that we put in there. It would destroy a wooden bit
Be
like
something pretty durable.
Yeah, like those containers can handle what my guy's doing there.
Right, the motors, transmissions, and, okay.
Yeah, so there's some logistical challenges with it.
Because it looks so nice. It really does look nice, and then you have a storage container.
I mean, you can't see it back there.
Right.
He would like to just leave it right where it is, but as staff has pointed out, there's an issue with your regulations and storage containers. So that's what we're trying to.
I mean, weather permitting, we could empty it and turn it pretty immediately. You know what I mean? It's winter. You know what I mean? I don't know how easy or hard that would be now.
You want to get your CO, I get it.
Yeah, I'm starting to get some pressure from my bank. Wants to know why I don't have a CO.
I get it. I get it. That's why I was just trying to come up with, something that would quicker
So
if you had an idea.
I guess this is a tricky one, and we're asking for the temporary to buy us some time to kind of come up with a solution.
I mean, I'd like that to
Work
be the
with staff
solution.
and with the building department, because there's building code questions that have to be addressed with that. So
I mean, if Ray came out and that wasn't feasible to do, then we would have to empty it, get rid of it, and try to figure out somewhere else to put the stuff. I mean,
So how much time would you be looking for a
I would say
I'm
just
sure all of us
months was what it's based on. You think that's enough time?
I think we could get it done sooner than that. Just whether, Ray could come out immediately and look at it. It's just a matter of how like I said, not being winter
get
and
it.
having to get all the stuff and leave it outside while we do the work,
Yep.
Because it's full of stuff all the
Yeah,
time.
and it's winter, I get it.
And that's why, like, the parking around, like, to jump, it kind of ties in. If you've been to or by, you see we have at any time 50 Amazon vans now parked on our lot because of the way those guys drive them and destroy them. And that's the transmissions and engines that are constantly going in and out and back and forth. And why kind of seasonally with inventory, sometimes we have more new cars depending on the season, why we would need more parking. And within the last couple of years, I always have these Amazon vans that ride around that perimeter that if I couldn't park there, I don't know what we would do with them. But it's a big part of our business now. And like I said, those are the engines and transmissions that are coming out, going into that building and waiting to get continually turned over from Chrysler.
Bob, you were saying that we can see you own this
Yes.
property. So one of the ones is Budding, he owns. The other one, you've got a good relationship with your with your neighbors.
We never have any problems with our neighbors.
So I don't think it's a nuisance or something that is something that people are complaining about.
Yeah, I don't think that would, or they would be here. I'm just trying to help you come up with another solution for that dumpster thing, but, okay. Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Was temporary get you a CO? If we say it's temporary?
I would say so. I mean, if we have an approval from you for a temporary storage container, then and it's within that temporary storage time period, then it wouldn't be a reason to hold the CO. That's my
big question, because what good does it do you if you can't get the CO? That's what you
I
really
think
need.
even if it would make everyone feel better if it was March or April, 3 months or 4 months, and it's not 6 months, I'm willing to. I want to get it done as soon as possible.
Right,
too,
but if we say temporary, can you get a CO?
I don't see why not.
Okay.
I don't see why not.
The staff know?
If it is approved as such, yes. If everything that is approved.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And anything that's not approved, we have to change.
That's correct.
We have to
So
bring it
on
into
that
compliance.
container, if you did move it and put it next to the building, would you try to bore a hole in it so you can bore a hole in the building, or you would just go outside?
I think you just have to attach it. Yeah, it would just go outside.
Just outside. And
because the trucks back up to the way it's facing, the trucks back up to those doors open, and they get the stuff in and out that way.
So would fencing that help this issue? They're just not allowed at all? What about if it's not fenced in or picket fence around there?
The regulation is the regulation. It says that no containers
No matter
may be
what, okay.
permanent.
You didn't talk about screening it.
Well, the
in this
storage
zone.
container regulation does require screening as well.
I thought so, yeah.
It's not specific about what type of screening, but there's that is a consideration. You don't if you're going to allow a storage container, you want it to be screened.
And I thought we did, so I thought we did
right.
normally. But in this case,
But that's for permanent in
this
the
is
industrial.
temporary.
okay, not going to help you. Okay. All right.
Okay. John?
You know, I understand the hardship. It's been there for a long time. I think if we consider a temporary, I think we ought to consider a year, not 6 months, especially in the wintertime. It comes up quick. If they need more time, they come back in another year, ask for another extension.
Okay.
But certainly amenable to that. With respect to the, I guess the sightline issue, we're talking about the northern bound, the northern entry exit is where the problem. You don't have the 500-foot.
Yeah, those cars were in the way. You can't see over the hoods of them at 15 feet back.
So is that and also Fremont Road?
And Fremont as well. Yeah,
so
looking south.
Yeah, so
yeah, obviously looking north, there's nothing in the way there. I actually thought that the cars maybe on the next lot, which Artioli also owns, those are up pretty close to the street, that would be a problem for sightline, but we checked it and it's fine. So that's good.
And you had suggested putting in language in the approval to that the applicant maintain 500-foot sightline at that entry and Fremont Road.
All three at both site driveways.
Or actually all three. Yes.
Maintain all three. Yeah. Maintain sightline of 500 feet at both driveways and at Fremont. So
and by doing that, just striping that front section, you know, from inside the curb line or whatever would take care of that. You're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. The language, because there's language that's in the motion right now that says. It says approve parking in the state right-of-way where the PZC has no jurisdiction. Rather than say approve, would we want to say acknowledge parking in the state right-of-way where the PZC has no
or
jurisdiction?
existing parking?
Acknowledge existing parking?
Yeah. Would that be more appropriate? I'm going to ask staff that through the chair.
Yes, sir, that would help.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm all set.
Anybody? Ken?
Yeah, I agree that I think a 1-year extension or temporary approval would be good. I worry about the winter time myself. I agree with Commissioner Petronella on that. So I'd be in favor of that. And the other thing is on the parking on, where we're talking about the sight lines where you're going to park the cars. Wouldn't it be better if you had like a cement blocking thing rather than a stripe? You know, I don't know what they call the,
Sure.
you know, the barrier. It's the small barrier so that you can't.
Wheel stops?
Yeah, yeah. Is that what they're called? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Those
That
would
might
be better.
because then, because
The,
guys are going in and out of there, they're all not going to, maybe pay that much attention to the stripe.
The problem with wheel stops is they're a maintenance issue for snow plowing. It's hard to clear snow around them. It'll be a lot easier if it's just striped. And the fact that it's the owner that's doing it, he has a lot of control over whether or not they're doing that. It's a condition of approval. It's enforceable. He's here. He's telling you that he wants to do that. It's just, again, a cost issue. Sure, that or put in or just widen the island, make the island bigger with more curving. But that would be an additional cost. And so he'd prefer to just stripe it for now. Maybe see how that works. If that is not getting the job done, staff is saying, hey, you're not in compliance with your condition of approval. Maybe we have to look at something like that. If you're okay with that. That would be the applicant's preference.
I think that just means the staff has to go and check it all the time. I mean,
understood. Yeah,
it's not, I guess I'm not sure how you manage that. I guess is what my concern.
I'm in charge of the cars, and I torture people that don't line them up right.
Okay. All right.
Because it looks bad. You know what I mean? That's a big thing with us. Like if you take a car out to service it, you better put it back where you had it.
Yeah.
And you better get out and look and make sure that it's lined up.
Okay.
Or you're going to go back and park it.
All right.
And not to say it doesn't happen, but we police it.
Yeah, it's just that, it's something important with the sightline, I think, to to make sure that's there. Okay, I'm good.
Christian?
Yeah, I completely concur, and actually that's what I was going to bring up, Commissioner Helinski, was that I don't think striping is sufficient. We were talking about sight lines. It's not just a cost issue. It is a safety issue, public safety issue. I mean, I think it should be curbed, and I think we should put that in the condition of approval. As mentioned, I mean, yes, you could extend the island. Some sort of curbing, I think, is needed. I don't think paint is sufficient. I mean, I'll put that out to the rest of the commissioners to see if they agree. I mean, I'm not sure. I was here last year when we approved it. I'm not sure. I think, I mean, and maybe staff can, maybe staff has a little better memory, but I mean, I think the only reason we approved this little skinny island of sort was just because that was how it was.
Right.
And we can't require them to adhere to the current regulations. Because they according to our current regulations, they would require landscaping as well as 20-foot buffer, 30, whatever that exact buffer is.
Yeah, 10 feet beyond the highway line. So,
Right.
so the curb would have to come not just to here, but another 10 feet. So it would be about 30 feet coming.
Right.
It would be significant.
Right, so we couldn't require that, understandably. But, I mean, as far as maintaining sight lines, I mean, I think it's within reason to curb that, to ensure that nobody parks within the sight lines. So that's my 2 cents.
Terrence?
My question is quite simple. It's in regard to what you're saying. That's a state right-of-way. He doesn't own that property. So how can we make him put a curb on something he doesn't own?
Right.
So where does the striping, so we also couldn't require the striping then?
We can't.
Is that-
Nope.
The
Well, we're-
state law is requiring.
We're proposing it.
That you have
We're-
the site line.
We're offering it.
Right.
So,
I
you're
understand.
not- Yeah.
And I like the idea of curbs, but I think in the overall scheme of things, that we could use the stripes and leave it, provided they're taken care of. And I'm sure you'd take care of them rather than have us come back 6 months from now and say, okay, now spend $10,000 and put curbs in there. I mean,
Yeah, no, for sure.
it's a pretty simple equation, and it's all not even his property. So it makes it hard for me to say, put something on it, because you could put it on there and you could have the state come back and say, hey, take it out of there. I don't like it. I don't know.
A follow-up?
Sure.
Just so I'm clear, in that red area, just cars for sale parked there, not customers, right?
Right.
So you guys are the ones that are parking the cars.
Yeah, and that's why
They sit there.
we'd like to park there, because we've had times in the past where like, oh, we'll clear out the front. We're having a sale. Let people park. If you saw it looks like people are in a police chase and pulled up every different way and ran out of the cars. You know what I mean? And we've had people drive over the curb to pull out when there aren't cars there because they don't realize. I don't know why they would do that, but a number of times I've seen people do that, and that's dangerous.
So it's maximum control by you guys, 100%. The cars that are sitting out there
Correct.
are for sale. Customers aren't going in and out.
No.
So I think it's I'm pretty comfortable with it. I think it's controlled, very controlled. If that's the case, I don't see a problem. I mean, you're running the operation. That's where they're going to stop. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a couple of questions. What's going to happen when the state comes out and says, oh, no, you can't park there? And this is a huge thing because you have no control over what DOT is going to say.
Right.
So that's a question that you guys have to figure out, not me. And to staff, we've got this variance we haven't talked about that I think we need a little more information on, so, because they're asking to park in an area, and the variance is very clear.
So, do you want me to go?
Please, I just
All right.
answer that.
So, I was speaking with Rick Rochelle on this variance, and when I was looking at the plan, because the variance wasn't actually called out on the plan, it was just noted, I thought that, because it doesn't say that the variance ran along the southern property line or the western property line, it just said there was a variance, basically to 0 feet for parking of cars. That's actually along the road. That's actually on the western property line.
Okay.
So when I wrote my memo, I was thinking that the reason that they wanted to continue the parking on the south side was because that's where the variance was. But in fact, there is absolutely no variance on the south side. And, you know, unlike the eastern side where they're actually outside of the setback, this is, they're proposing to park up to the actual property line and within the aisle. And that was my concern, because we really don't have, I mean, they didn't propose it with their original approval post-fire. And so I was very confused about this. I don't know how we could really, I mean, if you believe that this is a historic use and that you can approve that, I'm not exactly sure under what regulation, but other than grandfathering or
It would be
vetting.
non-conforming use, continuation of a non-conforming use, provided it's not increasing the non-conforming use.
Well, and I don't know that it isn't. I mean, because there's no proof that shows that you've been parking here. So that was my concern. Now, I haven't lived here. I haven't been here for the 25 and 30 years that this has been operating. So I can't say, oh, well, I've seen the cars there before. You're just telling me that they were there, but I've looked at some past pictures, aerial photographs, and it's not. I didn't notice that there was always cars there. So
I don't know that there were always cars there, but we've always used it for overflow parking.
yeah.
And
So
we're going on 50 years next month.
it's going to be a call on the PZC as to how you would allow that. The variance along the road, I believe, still stands. I actually put it out on the listserv trying to get the planner's take on it, and it's about 50-50 as to which way it would go, whether it runs with the land or it would go away once the lots are merged. So I don't have an answer for that.
Okay.
At this point, I would just assume that it remains and continues with the land, so I'm not worried about that.
And then I have one more question, is if we put this acknowledged parking in this state right-of-way, because I always go with the what ifs, something bad happened and, you know, you never expected to have what you had happen. What would be the town's responsibility, seeing that we're putting it in our approval?
So
That
I-
would be a concern.
I think that if you just wanted to say that we acknowledge that there is parking in the state right-of-way where the PCC has no jurisdiction, I think that that's a very safe comment.
I'm just
The-
trying.
The reason that we are concerned as staff is because Rick's going to have to sign off on their new K7, and the K7 requires a site plan,
Right.
the final site plan that's approved to show where all the parking is allowed. And we're acknowledging that there's parking there, but it's not part of the approved site plan.
Okay. I
So
just wanted
that
to-
was our concern with that.
Okay. Just want to make sure that we covered that, because we're also putting a condition in that says must maintain a 500-foot sight line from both driveways and
Right.
Fremont. So
I
that's
have written down proper sight lines within the state right-of-way must be maintained at all 3 sites as mentioned. Possible these are things I wrote down as you were saying them. So, storage container may remain in its current location on a temporary basis for a period of 6 months or 1 year, depending on what you decide. Note shall be placed on the plan stating that parking in the right-of-way is not part of the approved site plan. And then inventory parking is permitted up to 20 feet from the rear line along the east property line, 10 feet from the 10-foot side, sorry, wrote over something, 10-foot sideline along the easternmost northern property line. So that's that northeast quarter that where the hook is.
Yeah.
And then within 0 feet of the southern property line, if that's what you decide.
All right. Any questions? Sure.
Excuse me, so we're not going to put in and make them install a curb? Is that the way I understand it?
Within the right-of-way?
Yeah.
I don't think they have the right to do that.
Yeah,
but
I feel
I
the
don't think you
language
have the
as
right
you
to
wrote
require it.
that they're responsible to maintain the 500-foot
Yeah.
setback. That's it.
Or
That's
the
what they gotta do.
500-foot sight line.
However
I think
they
that that's
do
a
it
fair,
is on them.
a
Right.
fair, safe comment and requirement,
Right.
but I don't think you could push too much of what they have to do within the right-of-way. I will say that when the variance was granted, there was a note on the plan saying that the DOT approval is required for paved display area within the state right-of-way. I don't believe a DOT permit has ever been issued. Apparently, they don't care because they probably would have said something by now.
We did get a DOT permit for this project, so we had to close a curb cut. There was a southern curb cut, and so this was reviewed by DOT, and
Okay.
and when we were back here for one of our modifications, it was to address issues about landscaping. They wanted some changes with regard to landscaping. So
okay, good.
They've.
So then they have full knowledge of this.
This variance is over 20 years old.
I'm just saying that if they want to require,
I understand that, but it wasn't part of any, we haven't seen this variance. It's the third time they're here.
well, the variance is along the roadway.
This is the first time we're seeing this. I don't remember seeing the variance before.
Yeah, I don't think we talked about the variance
It was
in our
discussed.
original site plan application. Our understanding was that we shouldn't talk about the parking in the front. We just, and so like our parking calculations don't consider that. We're not taking credit for that because it's not part of the approval, like you said. But it's there, and it's always been there, and it's going to continue to be there. So I think by you acknowledging it. Hopefully that'll allow Rick to sign off on the DMV permit that shows it there, because it's he understands the distinction between approved by the town and existing historical.
I'm sorry, I think that's fair.
Okay. Anything else? Are we all set on this? Mr. Secretary?
I think we need to.
Decide, you're right,
Are we
the
gonna go 1
year or 6
6
months?
months on that storage container, or-
I'm going to have to say a 1-year extension would be fine, because it just, today was an unexpected snowstorm as far as I'm concerned. It wasn't on my list
Hope
of
it's not
to-do.
consistent.
Yeah,
That was 3/4 of an inch last night, supposedly.
yeah, it wasn't on my list to do. So, yeah, because the weather is whatever's going to happen, but.
I'm good with a year.
Everybody okay with the year? All right, so, all right. Okay,
Lori, do you have conditions
They're a little sloppy,
as you read them?
and I don't have,
As you read them, we're fine.
What happened to our fast typer over there?
Now,
he handled it. So I would just,
those are going to replace these?
yeah, I would just read this, 3, 1, 2, 3, and just 4 on the next page, and they're a little sloppy.
Not that it matters.
This says sightline,
Okay.
sideline.
Yeah, I think if we can, we're gonna have to do
Okay, yeah, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve SPR number 1944, 525 Enfield Street for a site plan modification to approve as follows. Acknowledge existing parking in the state right-of-way where the PZC has no jurisdiction. Proper sight lines within the state right-of-way must be maintained at all three sites, as mentioned in its current location at the three drives, including Fremont Road. The storage container may be retained on a temporary basis for a period of 1 year. No placed on a plan stating that the parking in the right-of-way, the state right-of-way, is not part of the approved site plan, and inventory parking is permitted up to 20-foot rear line along the east property line, 10-foot sideline along easternmost north property line, and within 0 feet of the south property line. I think I got that right.
Second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Yes. Linda DeGray.
4.
Frank Alimo.
4.
Kenneth Helinski.
4.
Vinnie Grillo.
4.
Joseph Muley.
4.
Terrence Lynch.
4.
And John Petronola is 4.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And good luck. And Ken, stop. Okay. Okay, SPR 1945-395 Enfield Street has been tabled. That's for the Dairy Queen?
That's correct, Madam Chair. And also, I do not see our applicant for 555 Taylor, and I just want to make a note for the record that this will be tabled to the next meeting of December 19th.
Okay, great. Okay. Moving on. We got our... We don't have any bond releases, and we got our, never mind. I was jumping ahead. Authorization for administrative approval, anything?
Nothing to report.
Director's report?
Can I do it?
Oh, you're going to put a report on that?
Okay. I have one thing to report on behalf of Lori. Today, we were contacted by the Department of Transportation about an upcoming culvert replacement happening under I-91 off of around the First Avenue area for the Great Brook culvert replacement. I'm not sure when they're planning on starting that, but they have begun their permitting process with their own entities under project number 48-200. So they'll be starting that in the future. And then you all received notification of the Connecticut Land Use Bar session happening on, I believe, March 15th on Saturday. So if you are interested in attending, just make sure you send us an email.
Yes, and I'm going to say I've attended, I don't know how many now. They're always interesting. And now that you don't have to go to Middletown for the whole day, it's even better because you can actually look at the list of sessions, and you can pick and choose. You don't have to sit and listen the whole day. Oh, they're talking about the train station. Oh, that's great. Or they're talking about some, housing or whatever. You get to pick and choose. It's really, really helpful.
And I must say, a lot of the attorneys who are presenting this year or next year's material are many attorneys who have been before you representing developments here in Enfield.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's a very good program. And actually, I think they're starting to do it annually. It used to be biannual.
Yeah.
And you get the book.
The book. Which is also great because you can go back and there was the grandfathering thing.
Right.
And being able to
Vesting.
understand it a little bit better. And I'm not going to say I'm 100% understanding it, but grandfathering a piece of property and saying, well, it used to be a slaughterhouse. Well, they want to make it a slaughterhouse again. Well, there's some, yes, they can do it, but maybe not, depending. So there's a lot to learn in that, so.
Right.
And, okay.
I have more.
Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry.
She stole this one from me.
All right.
Just a heads up, in January, probably January 8th or 15th, it's going to be a Wednesday, our previous senior assistant town attorney, Maria Elston, will be returning to help us do some commissioner training.
Yay.
It's going to be stay in your lane, kind of teaching commissioners. It's like, you've got to remember you're wearing this hat right now, and make sure that you stay in your lane when you're discussing things. We're working on that. She and I are going to meet up next week to discuss the dates. So just kind of save the date January 8th or 15th, kind of tentatively, and we'll let you know as soon as possible. And we have 2 applications to be received. Oh, we haven't gotten there yet. Never mind.
No, it's okay. See, I'm not the only
Move
one. Okay. Okay. Outside correspondence, none. Commissioners' correspondence, anybody? It's fun. Christian?
Yeah, through the chair to staff. I just wanted to kind of briefly get ahead of the game as far as the Winsonia plan with the mall redevelopment, and kind of just following up on the concerns that we had about the park and ride station and the transit station and Enfield Magic Carpet Ride. So, I mean, the developers will act in their own best interest, which, like they were pretty clear, is not going to be to host a park and ride. So I think the thing is, we as a town, I think, need to be proactive, getting ahead of it, especially if they're going to be starting demolition, potentially as soon as next summer, which would be great for the town, but, we have to address these things. So I would kindly request that staff try to help us out with this and work with the DOT. I was shocked to hear that there's nothing official on the book, and that's really disheartening that it was just like a under the table deal, because
But that's
makes it a lot harder.
I'm going to have to disagree with him, because that was state. There's part of
Right, it
that
is,
parking lot
yeah.
is owned by the state.
Yeah, I don't know about
So
ownership.
So that's between him and the state.
So we have brought this up, actually quite some time ago, we brought this up, and they were unaware of it at the time. So we did say that, we would like to try to keep it there, and staff-wise, we're trying to think, okay, where else can we put it if this happens?
Right.
So we're kind of already on that path.
Yep.
We could probably try to research it a little bit better if there actually is some documents. I'm sure that their lawyers
I
have.
think there is, because I remember when NAMDAR came in front of us and subdivided the mall, it was very clearly marked a certain area on the plan that is.
Right,
public.
because it's very clear on site where
Right.
that is.
So that's why.
Yeah, the bus stop and.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, so we are definitely investigating that. And again, we will be looking to, if indeed it cannot go back onto that site, we need to find a new site.
Right, yeah, we need an alternative.
Wasn't that
ready.
parcel controlled by Macy's not long ago? And then I think Macy's just recently sold it to, was it Namdar? So
I
maybe
believe-
that agreement got lost in the shuffle.
Maybe, I don't know, but it was on the site plan, so. Okay, anybody else?
I don't think it's owned by the state, though. They may have leased it, maybe.
I don't know, but I know that it's
If there was-
there. It's
that's what I'm
been
thinking.
very
Maybe they leased it. They
clearly-
probably had a lease. Yeah.
It was very clear on the site plan.
remember seeing that on
Yeah, so. Okay, I got 2 things. I got an email from the Chair of Economic Development, and the Insider today had something really exciting, and I'm going to read it, a little blurb. Locally, the biggest increase in riders came, now this is for the train, came on the New Haven-Springfield route. that runs along the Connecticut Department of Transportation Hartford line. The service carried 577,133 riders in fiscal 2024, a 30.6% increase. I think that's kind of noteworthy. So, I mean, that was like, wow. But that was just a little blurb about the ridership already on the train.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
I'd heard that they actually increased with COVID.
Yeah. So, I mean,
The
a
ridership
30%
just continued to
increase
go up.
this year. So that shows it's coming. And then yesterday, I did go down to the the press release, and the governor was here, and he said that the brownfields were for the mall and for the riverfront, which was great. But I had a commissioner ask about forming a subcommittee for the Agricultural Commission because they're writing the regulations for farming, which is part of our regulations. And they're struggling a little bit, and they would like a little help. So I don't know if anybody would be interested in, I know, Christian, you're on conservation, but, and they, agricultural meets prior to them. So.
Right, yeah, I only found that out
Yeah.
at the meeting I attended because I showed up when
Late.
the Conservation Commission was meeting, and they were just midway through their agricultural.
Right, so, yeah, they're struggling and they kind of need a little help. So if anybody else would be interested in helping with that. I know this next Tuesday they're meeting.
Tuesday, yeah.
Right, so I can't be there because I already have another commitment, but I might be.
I'll be there, but yeah, I
Okay.
don't know.
All right, just throwing things out there.
So, just so you know, Steve Heine, our new assistant planner, I've tasked him with trying to assist with this as well.
Cool.
But I'm sure that Georgie and I will end up chiming in.
I do have a copy of them, of the draft that they've written. I'm sure they're not done yet, but we definitely will be assisting them along the way.
Great, all right. Now, it's just they have a concern and they.
Yep.
They wanted a little bit of input from us too, so. Okay, anybody else? Okay, moving on. Oh, we don't, I gotta turn the page. Okay, other business, the adoption of a revised bylaws. Everybody got a copy of the revised ones? And basically, the only change would be going back to the old agenda format. We try, and Frank, I thank you for trying something different, but the applicants and people felt very uncomfortable sitting, waiting for us. And I understand why you did it. Because you wanted people to hear what we're doing. And they're more than welcome to stay, and they can always watch us on ETV. But people were not happy with it that way, so.
It was never brought to my attention that anybody wasn't happy.
It's okay, it's okay, it's okay.
But you're saying people weren't happy
But you
about it.
tried it, and you know what?
Well, I believe in that the people should see what's going on.
Right, and I wish people would stay, but you see what happens.
Right, that's why, that's why if we do it in the beginning, everybody's here. That was my point.
Okay, but thank you for the initiative on that.
Okay, you're
I
welcome.
appreciate it. So, yes, go ahead.
Well, I'm just amazed at how many people come up to me and say they've watched the television. So I think there are a lot of people watching the
Yeah.
television.
We have a lot of people in the
more than
office
they
who come
bring
in.
up
I've seen you on TV, and I'm like, oh.
And more often than not, they'll bring up
Yay.
some point that they liked or didn't like.
Right.
So I think, the people that want to do it and, are really interested.
I get that too, but they're mostly talking about the public hearings, and they're not talking about you know, the functionality of us or staff or what happens in the town. I get a lot of questions like, what's going on with this or what's going on with that? And it's a lot of staff level stuff that,
Yeah.
you know, we don't talk about or even get involved with unless, you know, they hear their report.
Right.
That's why I kind of like their report up front.
Yeah.
But I appreciated that you tried something, and you know, that, I commend you for that.
Thank you.
So. Okay, so, any other comments? So we.
I see we got that stuff from Pheasant Hill. Or,
Oh,
Yes.
wait. Motion to approve the
We need to
bylaws, please.
approve the change,
This one, the December 5th one?
the December 5th one. Yes. All those in favor?
Need the motion.
Motion?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission approve new bylaws with the changes for the December 5th,
right, December, yeah.
2024 revision.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Applications to be received.
We have two applications being received tonight that came in after we did the agenda. One is SPR 1946, 188 Moody Road. This is an application for site plan review for truck terminal expansion. Triano Realty Corporation applicant owner, map 100, lot 12, I-1 zone. The second being PH number 3110ZA, application for a text amendment to allow vet offices subject to limitations in BR zones. Enfield Corporate Properties LLC applicant.
Okay. And anything else that we need to know? Anybody?
You guys are doing great.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so meeting ended at 9:17.